Welcome to BitcoinCenter. I'm Paul Tarantino.
And I'm Cedric Youngelman.
On today's show, we're going to cover the Czech Republic, Trump's sovereign wealth fund. Our guests, Tomer Strolight and Tom Luongo, are going to break it down for us. But before we get started, what do you think about this whole thing with Cynthia, Lummis, and Checkpoint 2.0?
Well, I think it's about time. I think we need due process in this country and some transparency. So I'm happy to see that someone's taking a look at this.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, look at Nick Carter did a great breakdown on this in 2022, I think it was. And from that point on, all of us in the industry knew it was going on. We all felt it. We all lost bank accounts. Customers lost bank accounts. This is just sort of like shining a big bright light on the reality of the situation. So to the extent that it is going to open people's eyes up to the corruption and the disparity about how we treat businesses in this country, I think that's a positive.
Yeah, and I think even building on that, I mean, this will allow companies to build here in America, come back. I think a lot of companies were chased away by this sort of this witch hunt, you know.
But do you think it's legit? Do you think this is like they're going to be follow through on this?
I don't know. I don't know how level the field will get after this. I don't know how much transparency we'll get. I don't know if any criminal charges will be levied on anyone. I don't know if the public's going to get upset. I have no idea.
I'm concerned the fact that banks have lots of regulators. It's not just the FDIC, right? The Fed was involved. OCC is involved, right? And it's just been a history of like, we're for it, we're against it, we're for it, we're against it. So now we're for it again. But how do these regulators have lots of little tools to come in and issue restrictions on how much you can hold, how much you can rehypothecate. Is it an asset? Is it debt? So, it's like, I'm glad that we're getting some clarity on the corruption, but the outcome, I think, is to be determined.
I mean, Byte Federal sells Bitcoin. I mean, what do you guys think about this? Is this helpful for you guys?
The reality is we were debanked a few hundred times to get to where we are today. So that's a win, right? If banks start to look at us in a positive light. So I'm happy for that. I'm anxious about what the real regulations are going to be.
Yeah. It'll be interesting when you have the conversations with the banks, what those are like.
The Trump sovereign wealth fund. What do you think about this?
I mean, I think that this could be sort of like Lucy with the football pulling it away from Charlie. And this is a way around the SBR, the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. Yeah. Maybe this is a way for the government to stealthily buy Bitcoin. Again, I'm not really for the government buying Bitcoin. I'm kind of against the SBR.
What about buying companies? What about investing in private companies in the United States?
Right. Well, it seems to make sense. I mean, we've seen other countries like Japan and Saudi Arabia successfully use a wealth fund to help support citizens and give them access to technology and stuff. Yeah, no, it freaks me out too.
I mean, I feel like the founding fathers would literally.
Yeah, I mean, I could also see a lot of grift and corruption here. I mean, they're going to stuff this with crypto, shitcoins, and farmer stocks, and a whole bunch of stuff that maybe the country doesn't need to.
I'm concerned that the government would have influence through investment. Right.
Like, well, they already do.
We already have Checkpoint 2.0 had influence over banking.
Right.
If you're the biggest stakeholder at the table and you swing the biggest bat with your dollars on that boardroom.
Right. Who needs Operation Checkpoint 2.0 when you could just go into the boardroom and tell them
you could see obvious positives. But again, we're relying on our leadership to be doing the right thing for America.
That's a stretch.
It's a stretch. Yeah, that's a stretch.
Right. Exactly. It's an interesting idea. I mean, I'm kind of excited they floated it. Like, why wouldn't we have one? Just from the perspective of other countries have one. It seems novel. It seems interesting. But no, I don't trust anyone.
What's your take on the Czech Republic?
Well, I think it still remains to be seen. I mean, like, what they just do? Like, eliminate long-term capital gains tax on Bitcoin?
3 years.
Sure.
3 years, no capital gains tax if you're holding it for that long. I am back and forth on this, right? Because number one, I think that'd be a huge mistake to sell your Bitcoin for whatever asset. Number two, to me, it seems like, we're trying to draw talent. We're trying to get people to come to us to spend their Bitcoin. Who are they spending it to? Are they spending it to the Czech Republic government? Because they are also talking about a strategic reserve for the country.
Or is this just marketing, though? I mean, some people say El Salvador has kind of gotten overpriced around things like real estate, and it's not as maybe safe or as attractive as other nations.
But as a leader, that's what you want.
Yeah, you want to bring people to the country. I don't know how many people are going to move to Czechoslovakia to avoid long-term capital gains taxes. I don't know how many Czechs are involved in Bitcoin already. The issue with all
this stuff, right, is that the wealthy are going to benefit the most.
Sure.
Are we losing this Bitcoin pleb network to number go up, We're only here to get rich.
Right.
And what does that mean for the network, right? That kind of freaks me out a little bit, because that's not why we got into Bitcoin.
Well, actually, though, with the long-term sales, long-term capital gains tax being removed, it actually encourages people to sell.
Right.
It's not great for holders in that regard.
Exactly.
You know, it actually like adds sell pressure.
All right. So look, we've got some awesome guests to get to here. So let's jump in with Tom Luongo right now and see what he's got to say. And hopefully he can break this down.
Can't wait. This is BitcoinCenter.
Like, subscribe.
Tom Luongo, thanks for joining us on this segment of BitcoinCenter. The new Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has said a strong dollar is not necessarily created or correlated with reserve currency status. How should we think about that? And what could this mean for treasuries, stablecoins, and Bitcoin?
I think that he's correct, because what he's actually insinuating here is that we're going to have a domestic dollar versus an international dollar. We're going to have a strong domestic dollar with soft capital controls around it, and versus however the dollar is that circulates around the world. So, and that's what the sovereign wealth is about. There's a lot here. It'll take me an hour to do it right, but let's just that's where he's going. And what does that mean for treasuries? It means that he's going to probably issue domestic only treasuries, or some form of treasury security, maybe Judy Shelton's gold-backed tips or something along those lines. And it's also going to be good for Bitcoin and stable coins, because that's how they're going to distribute them. These dollars are going to be digital. They're not going to be a central bank digital currency like we've been fearing. It's going to be that kind of thing, and they will not circulate outside the United States.
Interesting. So this red wave that Trump was hired to, or that voted Trump in, this leading to all this draining of the swamp and transparency. But some people believe that as we shut down the corruption, that dries up liquidity. From your perspective as an analyst in this space, do you think that leads to a downturn in the market, or do you think this is a positive for the market?
Depends on what market you're talking about. Like, what did we see this morning that now it's official? I think more U.S. stocks are trading outside the United States within the United States. Well, that obviously needs to change. And if we're talking about how I just answered the first question, we could easily wind up with a segmented treasury market, which would then, of course, also create a kind of segmented stock market. I think if we're talking about restoring faith in the government, securities markets, which is necessary in order to keep rates low and borrowing costs down, then we'll probably wind up with churn in the equity markets. But again, at least in the short term, and then once the investment cycle starts to kick off and profit margins start to rise again, and we get the terrible overhang of fraud, waste, regulation, and all the rest of it out of the way, then sky's the limit. Bob's your uncle. Like, we could be dealing with like Trump's supposed golden age. So I think I think that's where we're headed.
I mean, this sounds a little bit to me like Javier Milei's program in Argentina. Was that a dress rehearsal? Like, is that what we're looking at on a bigger scale here in the United States?
For me, Milei is still an open book. It's still an unanswered question, because I'm still trying to figure out what he got in return for sending all of Argentina's gold to the Bank of England. So until I get an answer about that, I will reserve all good things I'll have to say about Javier Milei, because at this point he still looks like, the token crazy Austrian to run around and, do dumb things and discredit the entire movement. So if he's for real, then yes, it's a little bit of a dress rehearsal for what we're seeing in the United States. But I put large amounts of ifs around that, and I've got a deer lick sized salt block standing next to me while I say that.
Speaking of dress rehearsals, I mean, Trump and Elon keep teasing maybe a massive reduction in income tax rates, or even abolishing the IRS altogether. Is this for real, Tom? Is this a negotiating tactic? What's going on here?
I think it's a little bit of both. I honestly think that Trump wants to replace the income tax with tariffs. I think he wants to go to an old model. And again, like I said earlier, if we're talking about a domestic dollar, a kind of soft closed capital account where physical gold is kept in the country. We can speculate on dollar and FX risk with gold options or GLD options as opposed to gold futures contracts. I think if we're dealing with that, then I don't see any reason why we can't abolish the IRS, which was created by an act of Congress. The 16th Amendment authorized the Congress to give them the ability to create an Internal Revenue Service. But ultimately, this is an act of Congress that, as Peter St. Onge talked about, this is under reconciliation. We can repeal the Revenue Act of 1915 or whatever it was and get rid of the IRS or suspend it for 10 years and then figure it out from there. And then let the American people decide if they ever want to pay income taxes again, which I'm telling you they're not going to.
They're not going to. So, this all sounds to me like the real America, like the America our founding fathers envisioned. But at the same time, when I hear the word sovereign wealth fund and I think about our government investing in U.S. companies, I wonder if that's as freedom focused as we might like. And Bitcoiners are right. They're known for flying the Gadsden flag, right? They're known for this "don't tread on me" approach. Is everything that we're talking about here really an accurate representation of where Bitcoiners think they want the future to go?
I think Bitcoiners are going to be both very happy and very sad. Let's just make it abundantly clear. The government's not going away, but we can put a lot of it on the blockchain. Mm-hmm. Elon's already talking about putting government, receipts on the blockchain so we can see them. They can be publicly audited. That would actually change the nature of government as we've always known it. Mm-hmm. So maybe the definition of government needs to change. I'm a big fan of the Gadsden flag. I don't quite have a Florida license plate with one on it. I can get one. I never actually gotten one. And I think that that Bitcoiners our hearts are in the right place, but you have to realize that in order for Bitcoin to do what it needs to do, it has to first worm its way into stabilizing the existing system while we transition to whatever new system is going to happen over the course of the next decade, 2 decades, or however long it takes for the new system to play itself out. But we're definitely in a transition state right now.
That's a very hopeful vision. I hope you're right.
Before we let you go, Tom,
great. One more question.
Are you tired of winning yet?
No. I am tired of Donald Trump trying to feed me a 4th ribeye every day because my gallbladder can't keep up with the fat. Mr. President, please have mercy. But other than that, no, I'm not tired of winning. I don't get tired of winning. I believe in. I want to see them claw back all the money that they stole. I want to see them claw back Chelsea Clinton's house. I want to see them claw back the $3 million they spent on her wedding. I want to see them claw it all back. Absolutely. I think we should. And then give the American people a tax credit or a refund at the end of the fiscal year.
So it starts with transparency and you believe it ends with freedom.
Oh, always.
Tom, you're always a fantastic guest. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thanks.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
This is BitcoinCenter. Make sure to pound the like button and subscribe. Now let's get back to the rundown.
Tomer Strolight, thank you for joining us for this segment of Inside Bitcoin. As a Canadian, do you think the tariffs are being used strategically or are they being harmful to everyday Canadians?
Oh, wow. That's a question that just hits straight to home. I don't think there's going to be tariffs. So I think that they're being used for some other excuse, a distraction. And I'm not that concerned about it because I don't think they'd last. I don't think they're serious. And I think we'd manage to cope without it. Like there's a lot of doom and gloom that people throw around, and everything's like the end of the world. I had people telling me Canada will be on its knees within a day or a week. And the truth of the matter is we're very independent. It made me aware of, okay, well, what do I buy that's Canadian? What do I buy that's American? That if we have retaliatory tariffs, what is that going to mean? And it turns out that there's really not that much, like if you buy an American car and that's assembled in America rather than in Canada or Mexico, then that would have been something significant. But you don't make that purchase every day of the week. As far as things like food and heating and electricity and what makes up 90% of my bills, it's pretty much all Canadian already.
Right. I could see that. Thanks for sharing. Why do you think Ripple is attacking Bitcoin?
for the same reason that they always do, right? They want to get a share of this market that Bitcoin rightfully deserves, and they have an Excel spreadsheet, and that's all they've got, right? A fancy Excel spreadsheet or a fancy database, SQL database, and so their attempts to ingratiate themselves requires some casting some doubt and some skepticism about Bitcoin, and they've consistently attacked Bitcoin through dishonest means, whether it's misstating the nature of Bitcoin's relationship with energy, or its fixed supply, or its decentralization, all those things. But Ripple is about as centralized as you can get. It's a company that pre-mined 100% of the tokens, that sells the tokens into the market, that can freeze the database, amend the database, doesn't even have a whole record of its own blockchain, which is just a whole record of its history. But they want in on what looks like regulatory inducements to be, like if there's going to be a strategic reserve that might hold other crypto assets, they want to cast doubt on Bitcoin and make it interesting to potentially hold Ripple in there for people who don't understand that Ripple is just a token printed by a company.
Right, and that's why we got to keep educating. What are your thoughts on Ross Ulbricht getting a full pardon?
Oh, I think it's good. I mean, Ross was involved in something that was criminal at the time. He was not a violent offender. The degree of the sentence was just exaggerated beyond belief, like 2 consecutive life sentences plus something else for running the website. So I think it's really reassuring for the Bitcoin community that we're going to have a less hostile administration this time around as well, because this was important for one man's life, and it was also an important signal to the Bitcoin community that we're not going to be persecuted or prosecuted in a significant way. So I think it's positive on a lot of grounds, and I'm really relieved for Ross and his mother and everyone who loves him that his life is back on track.
Yeah, it's almost surreal. It's like having him back from the dead. Tomer Strolight, thank you for joining us on Inside Bitcoin. This is BitcoinCenter. Thank you, Tomer, for another segment on Inside Bitcoin. Now let's get back to the rundown. So Tornado, what happened here?
I think it's tornado, but
is it?
Yeah, that's the way I think. Tornado, tornado.
I'm an idiot.
Alex is released from prison. This is huge, awesome, a win for sovereignty, a win for freedom. I didn't think it would happen. Our guest last week, Nick, good job. I'm sure you were a part of this. And man, I'm like, this is wonderful.
This seems huge. Like, what is behind this? Like, why now? Like, what was put in motion? What was changed?
I don't know. But if this means that technology now can be,
you don't go to jail for writing code,
right? That's a big deal, right? If this is setting a precedent for future, that could mean a lot more freedom and privacy technology coming to Bitcoin,
right?
Which I'm all for.
I wonder if Tornado is going to speak on this. Trump?
Yeah, his launching an ETF.
From the social media company? A Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah,
right?
Bitcoin ETF.
Extensively.
Yeah.
Maybe it won't have wrapped Bitcoin.
Plus others, I think.
Plus other shit.
Plus other stuff he's talking about. This sort of seems like, look at, so we're going to launch a sovereign wealth fund, and now I'm going to launch an ETF that gets fed by the sovereign wealth. Like, there's a little bit of like.
It also seems like they're just throwing everything against the wall and seeing what sticks, what they can make money on.
Yeah, this is like, at least he's not hiding it. It's not like Nancy Pelosi, who's just secretly like the best trader in the world. At least he's like telling you up front.
Yeah.
But this is
Do you think
very,
any
weird.
of the incumbents are worried about this, like BlackRock or MicroStrategy, that this might eat into their business?
I don't know. Like Vivek's got ETFs. Trump's going to have ETFs. What else is coming down the line, right?
Right.
I don't know, man. This is interesting. At least all I can say is at least it's transparent. We know what.
And then I think there's a Franklin Templeton crypto ETF.
That's an index.
Okay.
It's an index ETF. So I think they said like 86% Bitcoin, the rest in ETH.
So as your Bitcoin grows, you cut your flowers and water your weeds and buy more of the crap. Right.
But they want to index because all these Wall Street guys want to index against some sort of. They want to measure themselves against some sort of index. The key thing here is that they only see Bitcoin and ETH as the index right now. Right. They said they could be adding stuff down the road.
Well, with ETH dying, that's kind of a terrible
Right.
index.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
speaking
I
of
think
crypto,
for all of us, Bitcoin is the index.
David
Bitcoin
Sachs.
is the index.
I agree. So David Sachs had his press conference the other day. This was the first, I guess, Bitcoin press conference from the new administration.
It really wasn't. Bitcoin was like the one thing that he said we're thinking about.
Right.
The strategic reserve was literally like, we're going to get
Isn't
back
that
to
government speak for like, we'll get back to you in 6 months and we're not doing it?
That's
like
the way
that's
I
usually
look,
how
like,
these
like,
things go.
Right,
like,
exactly. That was all about all sorts of
Right.
stablecoin regulation, and crypto and categorizing. These are all good things, right? Like put these things in buckets so we know what the hell we're dealing with. To me, it had nothing to do with the strategic.
No, I mean, it's kind of par for the course for the crypto czar here.
Shit, right.
And
it's par for course for VC on Wall Street. They loved the ICOs when they came out because they all saw this as like IPOs with liquidity, and I'm sure they'd love to see that come back. And the bottom line is the Bitcoin reserve is really not their priority.
Okay, Paul, this is the lightning round. We'll have 90 seconds to cover 6 topics and wrap it up.
Okay.
So first up, MicroStrategy rebrand. MicroStrategy rebrand? What do you think of this?
Sure. I mean, I don't care either way. I mean, we know what the company is, but I think it makes more sense now that the Bitcoin strategy is becoming the predominant focus of their company.
Yeah, I mean, eventually I think they'll get rid of the operating business, but this is sort of like their Facebook moment, the Facebook, and now it's just Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's sort of an intermediary step.
Meta.
Yeah, but I think we're going to go to like strategy Bitcoin, a strategy bank one day. I don't think it's going to just be strategy. I think they're working towards something here. I think this is sort of a transitional moment. I don't think strategy B is, but it's kind of weird because you look up strategy and they're not going to be the first thing that comes up right now. The search is not going to be geared towards, feedback on that. And, it kind of seems like a weird little thing because B is in the title.
Yeah.
It's
Plan
so
B. Well,
speaking of MicroStrategy, though, Saylor was seen at Mar-a-Lago with Chris, the CEO of Pavlovsky.
Because you witnessed Saylor pitching.
Yeah, I was there on New Year's Eve when Saylor pitched Chris Pavlovsky this exact plan. But it really seems like Rumble since that day has gone like full force into Bitcoin and sort of like decentralized protocols for users and creators. And it looks like they're trying to do a lot with Tether here.
Do you think it's going to be like Bitcoin on their balance sheet and Tether as the currency that gets exchanged through Rumble?
I think that's possible. But for some reason, I think the interesting here is freedom of speech and what Rumble's trying to do in that area. And it seems like Tether is really upset probably with YouTube and Twitter and Facebook for past behavior when we couldn't talk about Bitcoin on those platforms.
Well, this also
as
link with Tether on Lightning. Because if you're going to be, sending sats back and forth like on Nostr across Rumble, you need to have, and you want to do it with dollars. You're going to do it over Lightning.
Right.
This seems to
maybe
be like
sats.
this is the
I don't
bigger
know
picture.
where this is going.
Well, I mean, it's sats, but it's dollars minted on sats, right? So it's dollars over Lightning, or Tether over Lightning, and I think that might be the bigger picture of what they're talking about here. I mean, I think I've always thought Tether was green lighted when they came out of those investigations. And now I think they're fully coming to the United States in a big way. So this is it's going to lead to all these social apps that are now become wallets, right?
Right. Well, I mean, Rumble has an incredible data platform. So I think they're trying to do different things with their back end, whether it's social media, whether it's video, whether it's content creator payments. So it's really interesting what Rumble's doing.
Look, I don't want to change the topic on you too fast.
Sure.
But Peter Schiff actually had a win.
Gold is at an all-time high. I'm actually kind of excited. Gold is kind of a canary in the gold mine. I think we have a lot of alignment with gold bugs.
Sure.
I actually went to my local Costco and bought a little gold bar just so I could feel the thing. I love that, like Trace Mayer talks about. And my wife was like, "Oh, you probably bought the top." So I'm happy that gold is up a little bit. So I can look at my
Peter's happy. Peter, congratulations! You won.
Nice for Peter.
You won one time, buddy. You get it.
And they go together.
But it won't. You won't.
But kind of talking about gold at an all-time high, Bitcoin dominance, I think, is kind of roaring back. I think it's a stupid stat.
Yeah, but then it is. I like this stat because this is a cycle where it's maintaining dominance.
Yeah, but it pretends that Bitcoin should be compared to something,
that's a good
and
point.
that they're similar. And so there is nothing
to compare it to.
Yeah, and I don't think that the metric really incorporates stable coins very accurately.
I do think it's really important, though, for people to realize Bitcoin, 64% of the entire crypto market, you're wasting your time on anything but Bitcoin. If you're going to be a long-term holder, if you're trying to build wealth, if you're trying to build freedom, that's the signal. Stack sats, stop buying crypto.
Speaking of freedom and custody, self-custody, I mean, do you have a preference between single sig and multi-sig? Maybe some people are trying to figure out what to do
all the above.
Sure.
Like get your Bitcoin off the exchange, hold it in cold storage, obviously. Multi-sig is preferred. I love my multi-sig at Unchained. I just think their platform's amazing. Kudos to you guys for building an awesome product. I know there's others out there that are great too, but multi-sig in general, I mean, if you don't want to risk your coins and you want to have a way to get your coins to your future Bitcoin family, this is the way to do it, man. And it's absolutely.
Well, I like multi-sig too. I think there's no single point failure. I think it's great for inheritance. I do think that with multi-sig, most people are going to have to work with some sort of collaborative custody. I don't think a lot of people are ready to roll their own multi-sig right now.
And it's less private.
So I think most people
right?
maybe should use both. Maybe single sig so you can learn how to roll your own. Maybe have a certain amount in there. And then maybe multi-sig for a bigger, more secure stack with inheritance planning.
Cedric likes to roll his own.
There you go. And speaking of sort of Bitcoin price dominance, what about
the price is dropping?
Yeah.
Price is down, but
over a whole 3 weeks here. Yeah. This is kind of embarrassing, the sentiment, this bear market sentiment.
We talked about this, right? We talked about like the Trump administration, all the hype. And we thought about it as sell the news.
Yeah.
Like I just look at Bitcoin. Nothing goes up in a straight line forever. There has to be consolidation. I think this is very healthy for the market. In fact, I think it would be healthier and we would go up further if we came back and tested the mid 70s.
Okay. Well, this is very similar to 2017. If you look at like December 2016 through March of 2017, where it did kind of like reach 11,000, maybe get up to 1,200, pull back a little bit before it then took another 26x.
Yeah. I don't think anybody who's looking at Bitcoin with the right perspective should be concerned about a pullback. A pullback is a huge opportunity.
Sure.
Everybody is sitting there, I've missed Bitcoin, but you refuse to buy the dips.
Well, we're always back here again. People say they're waiting for a dip, and then we get a little dip, and people freak out.
And then they don't buy it
forever. And I think this is very interesting around 100K.
Look, you buy the dips, let Sailor buy the tops, and you're going to be good.
There you go. So I think that's all we have for you this week. This is BitcoinCenter. Make sure you like, subscribe so you catch each and every episode each week. Thank you so much. This is Cedric Youngelman and my co-host Paul Tarantino.
Thank you, guys.